Hi, I'm Dawn Brolin, CPA, Certified Fraud Examiner, and the author of the Designated Motivator for Accounting Professionals. Today's episode of the DM Disruption is brought to you by SmartVault, my go-to solution for secure, completely paperless document storage. SmartVault was built for the unique needs of accounting professionals with bank-level security, completely customizable folder structures, plus native integrations with tax software such as Lacert and ProSeries, as well as popular practice management tools. It even has an integration with DocuSign right in the software for maximum efficiency. I've been using SmartVault to keep my practice running paperlessly and profitably for more than 10 years. That's why I consider them an MVP in my Team Brolin starting lineup. Check them out and get a demo at smartvault.com today. All right, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the DM Disruption. And we are here with the one and only Ian Vacin, which, by the way, it's impossible to get a hold of this guy because he and Karbon are out there crushing it. I mean, crushing it to the point where the hype at Scaling New Heights was overwhelming about what Karbon is doing in the industry and for the pro advisor community, for the tax community, for this. And they weren't even there. But I can tell you, they were there because they're integrating with Liscio and they're integrating with SmartVault. They're integrating with Lacert. They're doing such amazing things. And I'm honored because I've known Ian when he was back at the Intuit days, right? And he just busted out of there and just went out swinging and came in as a co-founder of Karbon. And Ian is awesome. So Ian, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I know you got a little raspy voice, but like I said to you off of camera, it's hot, okay? Not that I'm saying that you and I are like whatever, but it's a raspy voice is a hot voice. It just is what it is. So I
Appreciate
love
that.
it. So hello, Ian.
I'm super excited to be here. It won't sound like it from the voice, and I can't really express as loud as I want to go, but I'm going to try my best. I appreciate that. Yeah, we are trying our best. We're out there kicking some
Yeah.
butt, and we're hoping to kick a lot more. So I'm super thrilled to be on here, and I'm ready to tackle about motivation and a little bit about me, a little bit about Karbon, a little about
I love
you.
it. That's what we're here for now. So since we do go way back, and I happen to know a little bit about Ian, so knowing that you came, I think the audience wants to hear your story, Ian. I know a lot of people know you, a lot of know you from Intuit, from the Intuit days, because you made a
Yep.
mark, Ian. Now, a lot of people have been at Intuit, they've done things, but you left your mark at Intuit and you left there and embraced this new concept of helping the accounting professionals in a different way than you were helping them before. So tell the story all about Ian. We want to hear all about you.
So I'll give you kind of a little bit of history and why I ended up where I was. I actually had started a company, or I'd taken over a company in the late 90s, which, that was a very different era.
Mhm.
And long story short, I handed a situation where I don't think I was competent enough in the finances, and we just got caught really
Mm.
flat-footed, and I had to lay off a lot of people, and we shut the company down. So when I went back to grad school, I thought, if I could figure out how to make the financial products that power what everyone works on, then I could really make a difference, and I could ultimately be able to do what I'm doing today
Right.
successfully. So that's why I chose to work into it on my way out. Now, when I worked there, I didn't understand the accounting channel; it didn't exist back
Mm.
then. It wasn't until Microsoft decided to come in that we really took notice, and that's where I played a part of it. And ever since then, I realized that the way that I can make an impact here positively, and this is something we have at Karbon, is if we can help the accountants out there be able to do what they do, then we can influence so many small businesses by being supportive of the broader community. And that's what my passion has been since then. So at Intuit, I worked in every version of QuickBooks, worked a little bit on the Quicken side. Then I picked up the Pro Advisor program, worked in the accounting division, and then fast forward, I'm now here at Karbon, and we're here trying to make lives easier every day for all of you.
Well, and so that's really, I mean, obviously, the accounting industry is a kind of a different breed of kind of people, right? There's us
Yeah.
crazy people, and then there's we call it the traditional route of the suit and tie and everything like that, which there's nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with either of them, but you had an
Yep.
impact into it, and you had the ability to connect with pro advisors, with accounting professionals like myself, and you did that. And so
Yeah.
now in this, I'll call it the new role or the bigger and better role or whatever you want to call it, because you saw the need and you understood the pain and you didn't necessarily see the best solution out there for us to be able to manage, our workflow and how we are actually running
Yeah.
our firms, right?
Yeah. So the start of Karbon for me began when I was in the Pro Advisor program, where there was all these different systems, but there was no way to really manage them well and really be able to know what one person was doing versus somebody else was on the same
Mm,
team. And if you remember back in the days, it used to be if you wanted to have an integrated suite, you had to do all the work yourself. You had to maintain it all, and the technology just wasn't
mm,
there. But then my next role, I basically partook in buying one of these workflow solutions. And when it came in, it was so rigid,
mm.
you couldn't change it. And there was the lesson learned that the problem that we all have as accounting firms and accounting professionals is you can guarantee what you want to do in an engagement letter, but it just takes one email to change and upend how you're going to have to serve that
Yeah.
person. And so when we started this company, there's the founding group of us and the first few employees. We actually spent time working in accounting firms.
Mm,
We sat there and we walked the walk, and we observed it with the hypotheses that we had at the time to really understand why is it so hard that even if we are in a situation where five of us were shoulder to shoulder sitting in the same office, how come we don't know what everyone's
right.
working on? And that was the birth of this particular
You
company.
know, and I love that because I was a partner at a firm years ago. And one of the things that I found really frustrating for me was that weekly meeting. Okay. The weekly meeting, kick off the week. What's everyone working on? What has to be billed? What hasn't been collected? We spent like Mondays doing admin day, it felt like. And I didn't know what they were
Yeah.
working on. They didn't know what I was working on. People made assumptions on who was working on what. And it was just a discombobulated disaster and a real waste of time. So as like a
Yeah.
managing partner who wants to go see, okay, what's Sally been working on? What's she sitting there ready? What's ready to start for her? Where is she struggling or whatever? We couldn't get that insight. And you're right. You'd have to go. It's like, okay, emails are over here, and then we're pushing them into certain folders. So then when I go to work on John, I got to go to his folder in Outlook, and everything was just so disconnected. And that's how we operated,
Yeah.
right? And so, and when
Yep.
and when Karbon, tell me a little bit more about. So when Karbon first started, you understood. You went into these firms and you looked at the workflow, or you watched what they were doing, and you were like, there has to be a better way. And so, what was like the main focus of that initial maybe five thoughts on what you were going to do?
Well, we weren't building workflow. We The first problem we had was communications was the problem. So we had to solve the communications issue and the fact that you may deal with somebody, but you don't just deal with them as a
Mm,
business. You have to deal with them as an individual. They may have a charity that they have. They may have family members that you have to serve. And so the multi representation of an individual and how you have to serve them combined with all the methods of communication you need to work with
mm,
them, and then only then can you get enough of an understanding to actually be able to work with them. So we started off trying to marry communications and work
mm,
together. And that's really the two kind of pieces of the pie that we had to do. We didn't start from the traditional sense of, oh, we're just going to build what the work engine
right.
was, because the work engine would just be too rigid. Um, you know, if you look at the heritage of things, we started off with a triage piece, then we built tasks. We just reinvented that literally last week with my
Yep.
week, which was one of the oldest pieces of the product. And then we start to do the workflow, the work engine, the scheduler, and then all the other pieces that go on top of it. So that's kind of table stakes in this.
Yeah.
And one of the things you brought up was one of the travesties, I think, is going outside your lane.
Mm,
And for us, it was understanding that communications and work are the center point of what we do. And there's so many things that we have to interface with, which is why we never use the practice
mm,
management tagline until literally within the last
right.
year. Because, and even in that, we're a best of breed product. We're not everything to
Mm-hmm.
everybody.
100%.
And we don't plan to be.
And that's the beauty of it, Ian, at the end of the day. And I try to tell as I'm working with other practitioners on, they're trying to figure out how to put this all together. What does this all look like? And it's like, okay, so QuickBooks is meant to do accounting software. QuickBooks is not meant to be a
Yeah.
client practice management solution or a client communication tool. That's not what it was built for. It's built for accounting. And but yet the beauty of having the ability to integrate, which I think is really important, the enter one time scenario. I just literally had a client in the office, and he's like, I feel like I'm always having to do everything 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, that's because you are.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just call it what it is, man. You are doing things 2 or 3 times because you're not looking at solutions that integrate and interface. So Karbon handling that, client, you've got all the practices all working within that one spot. And then once you're done with that, then you need to, get that information into QuickBooks. Oh, and you just sync it. It's just like, hello, does that mean, why are you entering it in Karbon, then entering it here, and then entering it there? Same thing with I mean, one of my favorite things is the Lacert integration, right? And having the ability to not just think emails. Like that's what we think. We think Karbon, that's going to manage our emails, it's going to manage our work, but we're going to have to manually do all of that. Well, no, you don't have to manually do all that. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to have Lacert to open to look at what the status is of a tax return. It's right within the work, which is where you should be living, right? With the
Yeah.
timeline and the time management and the budgeting and those kind of things. And I do have to say, one of my other favorite features, we could do Dawn's favorite feature conversation, but when I go in and we have a status called tax ready to start. That means the tax return, we've got everything we need, it's ready to go. And I go every morning, I pop in there and I usually do a little bit of my scheduling through that too, to make sure I know what I got to make sure I get things done. But I love the budget. When you put in the amount that you're charging them for the tax return, it'll tell me if I finish all these returns, I'm going to have 10 grand in my bank account. Like, it's a simple insight, but how powerful to motivate, which is what DM disruption is about, to motivate me to want to get the work done, right?
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
Yeah. And then as a team member, I might have 100 things. What's the ones that really matter? Those are the ones where you look at the
Yep.
budget, or maybe you're going to look at it from the importance of the
Right.
client. Maybe you've got that tagged in a certain way. I mean, that's what, we spend a lot of our time focusing on the clients who shouldn't deserve our
Right.
time. And so it's to help all provide that sort of clarity so that the individual or the firm can make those determinations of where value should be spent.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the great things, and I tell people this, it's probably on every episode because it's a fact, it's true, and it's what we as the practitioners have to watch for. So Karbon is a tool that is always improving. I said this when I was at scaling. I did a couple sessions and I said, what you have to watch for is the application moving forward, because if they're not, they're moving backwards. So if you're not seeing
Yeah.
improvements in the product or latest releases that are coming through, like the multiple clear triage that just came out this morning, I believe. Wonderful Sarah always has ended
Yep.
up in my little chat thing to tell me what's going on. But we're seeing Karbon at the forefront and the leader in this, we call it positions in the Team Brolin starting lineup, in the position of practice management and workflow and tools associated with that. You are the leader 100% in this space without a doubt. And so I think that as I advise people on what to choose for the different technologies, do they integrate? Are they looking for will they accept feedback? Do they have a roadmap? And you'd be surprised at how many don't. And they haven't had a release
Yeah.
for, a year or two. Like that's just not
Yeah.
going to work.
Yeah. I think it just comes back to a little bit of how just the
Mm,
personality of the company. So we take everything we invested back
right.
in, and myself, Stuart, John, and the staff here at Karbon, we're not happy with the fact of we always want to go
Mm,
faster. We always want to deliver
right.
more. I see every piece of feedback that comes in, everyone that goes into that help and feedback. I read every single one of them, and so does the
Yeah.
PM team, and we prioritize that. And if you don't listen to your customers, you're
Yeah.
dead. But secondly, if you're not investing every effort that you have to make everything better, you're going to fall behind. And we don't want to be complacent. I appreciate that you say that, we're doing well within the space, but that doesn't matter
Mm,
to us because I'm not looking at where my competitors
mhm,
are. I actually don't care. I look at where we can be and what we need to be to support all of
mhm.
you, and what you need to do. And, frankly, we're not a purple squirrel. We don't have all the features in there. We never
Right.
will. But that doesn't mean we can't try to get them all in there. So I agree with you. You need to look at the cadence of things. I have been on the road with vendor over the last 20 years and heard about what feature is going to come, when it's going to come, and watched it never come.
Right.
And so I want to stay away from that, but we get asked a lot about our roadmap. So we'll tell you what's coming in the next 3 months because it's in the queue. It's being worked on. Outside of that, there's a bit of prioritization, ups and downs. And so we generally don't go beyond that. But I think it's proof is in the pudding, and hopefully that comes
Oh, there's
across.
no doubt. Now, let's just talk about the acquisition of one of your
Hmm.
your team members. Because I gotta call everybody a team member, right? One of your team members who is well known in the industry and has and I think that this speaks to, like you were saying, the character of the company in and of itself. Does it feel right
Yeah.
in your gut? Like, do you feel like they have the right mission in place? Do they really have the right people in mind? And so for you to acquire Andy Anchetta, who is one of the most amazing people that I have ever met. So knowing that you're stacking your staff, you're stacking your key components of your company, and you chose Andy, right? And so you guys worked a
Mm,
lot into it together, and
yeah.
it just happened right. And I think that's another piece is if you remember, and you know you do the days of the T sheets, right? Where
Yeah.
Jen Hetherington, and Kelly Bistrojanu, and Kelsey Meadow, and of course Matt. But it was those girls, those ladies who put the fire and passion into what T-Sheets meant to them and how the culture of T-Sheets behaved and portrayed in their when they come to conferences and things like that. And you couldn't help it. You couldn't help but be
Yeah.
drawn to that fire. And I feel like Karbon has that same profile of professional, positive people who are just out there trying to make it happen. And that has to be part of what your culture is. So tell us a little bit about like Karbon's culture. What are you guys standing for? And people like Andy Anchetta, who you can't deny how awesome she is.
So we're very particular on who we hire, especially over that these last seven
Yeah.
years or 8 years now that we've been doing this. And a couple of the things are, we're very intentional and very pragmatic. Um, and from a culture standpoint, we persevere and there's resilience within that. And so, for instance, Andy, I've known for a
Yeah.
long time. And I think for a lot of folks listening into this, there's a lot of people that you know and you respect, and you can go down the list, but the list isn't that long,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And the good people are they're amazing. So for Andy, and again, in the history that I've been doing this in the profession, the industry, um, there's a group of folks that we all recognize and appreciate. And so Andy was a person who I've chatted with probably once a month, every 2 months. We've always been in touch, and it was always a situation where if you ever want to come, if you ever want to go someplace, just call me up and tell me what you want. And Annie is
Yeah.
fantastic. We've got a lot of other folks that we've brought on this team that are amazing. But what we don't do is we don't fall into the fallacy of hiring people who have been in the vendor
Mm,
community for a long duration of time that haven't been able to be recognized by the industry, by all of you, the folks that the practitioners that do all the hard work, because we don't really want to have that within in sort of our sort of corporate
right.
culture. So we typically a lot of times I'll hire folks who are not within this, but have a high level of customer
Mm,
empathy, have a high level of thinking about how to do problems differently,
right.
because we need to be able to reinvent what's being done without falling into the traps of, well, this is what the last guy did in the last
Yeah.
company. We should just do that. We don't do that. That's why I said it's intentional and
Mm,
pragmatic. When we deliver functionality, we're not just checking off a
right.
box. We really understand why that was a pain point and how that interweaves with everything else, not just within the carbon landscape, but within the products that everyone
Mm,
uses. And so that's a hard recipe to deliver
yeah.
on. But again, that's what, to get those right folks to come in, you gotta have a bit of magic, a lot of luck, and hopefully there's appreciation for what we're trying to
Yeah, no
accomplish.
doubt. And with saying that, so going from your staff, and I just have to name drop Andy. Like I just can't help it. Like
Andy's amazing. I mean, she is the heart and soul of what we have on our customer team, which I get to be a part
yeah,
of.
she's just always had a soft spot in my heart because she's the reason I believe that I ever got on the Intuit Accountant Council. She was my interviewer, and I just like I'll never be able to thank her for the opportunity that she helped me achieve with that. And it's really the beginning of my story of accounting really was with that first experience with Intuit, which was awesome. But so now if we shift a little bit, let's talk about integrations for a hot second. Like you said, I mean, things
Yep.
are built, apps are built for a certain purpose. And then when you realize that, oh, well, you know what? Maybe we can all play in the same sandbox, which is the way I put it. It's like apps that
Yeah.
integrate understand where their lane is, and they understand how they can help the team. If we're thinking about Talladega Nights, right? Shake and bake. We got the car coming
Yep.
up from behind so that somebody else can be the winner of the race, and unfortunately, shake and bake,
Yeah.
it's all good. Magic Man, came from that as well. So you guys are forward thinking, and you're also evaluating pretty critically who you want to play with, right?
Yeah. That's true. We don't usually go down to the traditional route is if I want to go integrate with somebody and I've got more strength in the relationship, then I'm going to extract rents or I'm going to take a little bit off the
Yep.
top from another vendor. We don't play by
Right.
those rules. Whenever we work with somebody, it's mutually aligned
Mm,
incentives. And for most people that we integrate with, there's uncomfortable overlap. And the reason why that's a good thing is two systems can't integrate together if there's not a common
mm,
area by which they transfer data, workflow, or whatever it might
right.
be. And so a good analogy is you start off with QuickBooks, right? Well, remember that Carbon's not where you do the work, it's how you do the work. So we're a springboard for all these other
Yeah.
places to do the work. And financials overlap when you get to things like time and budgets. You get to, again, what work you're actually pursuing. And so QuickBooks, there's QuickBooks Online Accountant, right?
Right.
Fantastic. It does a little bit of what we do, but that's great because it's a starting point for folks. You kind of understand what you want to do, but then you need something more professional grade. That's what we're
Right.
here for. You talked about
Yeah.
Liscio, right? Liscio is fantastic. Chris is a great guy. Chris is in the same sort of
Right.
mantra. We have overlap. People ask us all the time, well, if he's client, basically client facing client management 2.0, and you guys have client features, then how does that work? Well, where they took it is a place that we're not going to take it. We're not going to go to that mobile first only, dealing with text messages and all the other
Hmm.
things. But we overlap in our contacts and we overlap in those vehicles. And that's what makes it work really well.
Absolutely.
And they did a fantastic job in making those pieces integrate. You talked about SmartVault,
Hmm.
right? That was another one in your
Yep.
group, right? Well, we do document management as well because we intercept every communication and we have to do that in order to context of
Hmm.
work. But we're not a document management
Right.
system. We never will
Right.
be. And so the key is we're a short-term data store to ship all those documents to the proper vendor. They're the professional
Right.
grade. And so that's where that integration really matters. And when you think you can do everything for everybody, or you decide that you're going to try to bite off more of that puzzle, that's when you end up flailing pretty
Right.
bad.
And that's a natural movement over to the Lacert conversation, right? So having Lacert
Mhm.
be able to tell how to work, which is Karbon, how do I get the work done, i.e. tasks within the work, which is the whole customization of that is phenomenal. And what I pride us on here at Powerful Accounting is we're constantly looking at our workflow and our task list and how are we establishing that so it makes sense that there's not a lot of disruption. Although this is the DM disruption, we still don't want disruption in our workflow if at all possible. And it being able to customize and recur it and make it work forward is awesome. But you're right. It's like
Yeah.
when someone sends a document, whether it be via fax, because there's a lot of time we'll get a fax notification from we use my fax comes through and we attach it to a
Mhm.
work, that communication is attached to a work. When we go to do the work, it's telling us how. And you're right, those documents are right there to grab, but they're also there to download and stick in what we call our permanent document storage, which is SmartVault. And so I think
Yep.
that you're right. You've got to try to figure out for you how all that works best. And we just implemented Liscio, so we've been using it for a couple months now. Our clients are like, "Oh my goodness, this is so easy to use." But Liscio isn't how I'm going to do the work. It's just me being able to communicate with
Yeah.
the client so that I can say, "Hey, I need this document. I need a password," and it's secure. The communication secure, and they don't have my cell phone number. Thank you very much, right? And so that's where I know Liscio fits into my playing field, where Karbon is going to tell me how I'm going to get all of it done. and when and how. And we had a
That's
meeting
right.
this morning. We had a great staff meeting this morning. We're like, okay, we got November and December to get books ready for 1099s, things like that. We don't do a ton of bookkeeping, but we do enough that we've got to manage it. And so in Karbon, we
Yeah.
went through it. It's like we revisit it when we see there's something we're maybe not, and it's not Karbon, it's powerful accounting's control over Karbon, which gets in the way. Our control gets in the way because Karbon's meant to do things in a certain way. So I just find that, with the staff, it's just so easy to be able to see everyone's communication when with the work when you're going to figure out how to get it done. And that's what we love about it. But the Lacert piece, tell us what stemmed that. Like, I know that there's Intuit practice management or that's really kind of geared with Karbon. Tell us about that relationship.
Yes, I mean, obviously, we've got long roots with
Yeah.
Intuit for myself and Andy and others, right? Well, one of the biggest things on tax was, there's just a lot of
Mhm.
volume. And with the volume, you really need to have a very, very good process to be able to get through that seasonality. And from the Intuit side, they just haven't had a product that's able to fit within that
Mm,
gap. And when they were looking around for who to partner with, and I'm sure they looked at the entire set of folks out
right.
there, they also saw where we were headed and the focus that we had. We have no intentions of ever building
Right.
tax. We never would. I mean, but what we do is we help make tax understandable and easy. And again, we're the bookends on that main process. We are there to help get the engagement going. We are there to make sure all the pieces come together if we're talking about a business tax return. And then we're there to be able to put that in place and allow for you to use the product of Lacert
Hmm.
and then monitor where the statuses are. So you'll see it become more and more intertangled, where again, we can do the pro forma rollover, you can create the return on the fly, you can see the statuses as it goes through, and it ultimately gets finished at the end. And then we're monitoring the statuses for return statuses, e-filing, and so forth. Now you add that in with the other integrations that are currently underway with document management and things of that nature, and it just gets a lot more sexier,
Right.
right? But the key is we're there to help bookend. We're there to help give
Mm,
visibility across the pure scale of, if you're a firm of, 4 or 5 people, you're probably doing 500
yeah.
returns. It's a lot of
Hmm.
returns. And by the way, if you're not having a close eye on it, it's going to be this wall, this mountain that's going to hit you as you hit March and
Yeah.
April. So you need to flatten the curve, but you need to pull the work
Right.
in. You need the systems that then pursue it, chase down the clients, and then help bring that seasonality curve under control.
Yeah.
And that's where we fit well.
Well, and I love it's not just how I'm going to do the work, but who's going to do the work. And I think that, the ability to assign a task within a work. So for instance, a great workflow that we go through is the engagement letters go out. Tracy's in charge of engagement letters. She gets the organizers. She does the payment, making sure we have payment information. I do the quoting. So in every single work, we have the same process for every client assigned to the right people because we found that when I started to get involved in the organizers and doing that stuff, Tracy's like, please stay away from it. You are not good at it. Like, this is not your wheelhouse. Let me be in control. And it's crystal clear to anybody, like, where are we in this work at this point? Oh, I pop in, maybe a client has called me or something. And I'm like, John, you didn't get Tracy, the client organizer. You're not even in line yet, buddy. Like, so you're able to really, at a click of a button, to see where does this guy stand because he's calling me and saying, "Where's my tax return? I need it." Well, you haven't even started with step one yet. Don't skip over Tracy's
Yeah.
process because she ain't letting you through the line, man. Right?
Yeah, well, it comes down to I stay in my lane, you gotta stay in your lane,
Yeah.
right? So it's understanding what everyone's lane is and supporting that. So, yeah, you're the least efficient person to be at the front of that process, and it's the most expensive person.
Yeah.
You don't want that. So you wanna be able to have that separation of
Yeah.
duties, being able to the roles. Just because there's a title doesn't mean anyone's more
Nope.
important. It just means when we're in a conveyor belt, because that's where I come. I'm an industrial engineer by
Okay.
trade by trade. So that's what I know. And that's what this is about, which is you're putting the right people on the right spots to be able to create the most efficient end result for everybody involved, which is including the client. And so when you're able to do that, then you have a magical moment. Then you have peace of
Yeah.
mind. Then you have high returns in terms of gross margins, and literally you can do as much as you can with the staff you
Yeah.
have. And whether you want to, where you want to go from there, that's up to you as the
Sure.
owner or the firm manager.
Yeah.
So
Well, and so just to kind of wrap it up, we like to keep it within 25 minutes. People get bored with us, although you and I think are pretty freaking awesome. I think people would want to listen for forever. But um, Are there any, like, do you want to tell us any roadmap things that maybe, I'm not NDA type of stuff, but some things that maybe people have to look forward to here in the next few months?
Well, we're pretty transparent. They can go on our
Yeah.
site and they can see what the road is moving forward. You know, because we're not really worried about, if we can inspire our competitors to follow, sure, it's just going to make everyone successful. Big thing coming up at the end, the turn of the year is file management integration. And so that allows for all the documents to flow to your document management store of
Awesome.
preference. Um, Calendar is the biggest
Mm,
one. That has been on the roadmap and the request list for ages. And
yes.
that is currently in development as we
Oh,
speak. So that creates the magical moment of, oh, I've got all my communications now. I got my calendar, and I can do time boxing,
yeah.
and I can see my colleagues and what they're working on. Those folks will actually move next year into what we call team capacity
Cool.
planning, which is pretty darn cool. Which is, I can see what I'm doing in the next month or so, and I can move everything around. Um, we have a new component which is really on our client requests, just making that a little bit
Mm,
tighter. Um, Big thing that I'm super excited about, which you'll see next year, is our industry cloud concept. And this allows for you to have all the reporting capabilities you could ever dream of by bringing in all the data stores that you want and giving you the flexibility of how you want to report on it. We get criticized a lot. People go, like, where's all your reporting stuff? Well, we do it in the work view. And the other thing, the problem is, like, if I create a canned view for somebody, or I create this report, it's going to work for like 4 people, and the other 500 will be like, that's not working for me. So the idea there is give you what you want, allow you to have the panacea to play
yeah.
with it, give you some guardrails, and then let you do what you want to do. So that's a really big
That's
improvement.
awesome.
And then integrations is the mantra of next year. So you will see this become fully integrated with all the different tools that you're looking for. So it's really unraveling what we
Yep.
do. Um, and there's some other sneak surprises in it, but I think that's
That's
enough
enough
to
to, well, I can
chew
tell
on.
you right now, the scheduling, I'm super pumped about everyone will be able to see what other people are doing. And we had that meeting this morning and said, listen, okay, we've got the work all figured out. That's all good. Everything's all tight. We're good. Everybody's satisfied. Okay, cool. Now we can make it recurring because we got the templates the way we want it. And then it's like, okay, now go to Outlook. So now you're going to go outside of Karbon and you're going to go put in your calendar when you're going to work on these certain things, right? It's just, it needs to be better than that. So we're definitely excited about seeing that feature come out internally here at Powerful Accounting. But I would just, Ian, you are like, I don't know, you're like a brother to me, man, and I'm just so glad that I was able I know you how busy you are, and I really respect your time, and I appreciate you and what Karbon is doing to help firms across the world, get it together and become, a better, more powerful firm, which is what we need to do. So, any last words?
No, I appreciate the kind words. Just so you know, we're here to serve all
Yeah.
of you, and you guys do the hard job. We're here in the background, and hopefully, I think the thing that I would appreciate is give us your
Mm,
feedback. Whether you use us or not, that's up to you. But you need to really push your
mm,
vendors, push those that are in your ecosystem that help you out every day, push them to do more for you, because I think that's the kind of the situation we're in, that we need to have better
right.
suppliers, for lack of better
Yeah.
words. We have better partners, because right now, it's a hard job out there for small businesses, and accountants are the heroes.
Mm.
So anything we can do to put you further to be a hero, that just makes everybody win. So I'm super blessed to be on here. I'm not that busy, Dawn. I'm always got time for you, and I
Oh,
really appreciate you being nice enough to share the limelight with
we
us.
love you guys. And like I say, my whole goal is to get the starting lineup to play in the same sandbox together because the better we are, and it is, I know it's corny, but they say better together. It's the truth. It just is. And we can
Yeah.
all be pushing each other because the more we push each other, the better we all become at the end of the day. It's not just about Dawn Brolin. It's not just about Karbon. It's about all of us working together to have a better experience in our profession. And so that's been awesome. But thank you everybody for listening. It's been a great episode with Ian Vacin, co-founder of Karbon, just an amazing person. And I'm honored to call him a friend. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll get back to you next time on the DM Disruption. Thank you so much.